Good morning, starshine. The earth says hello. Dude, I keep getting these scratches on my hands when I sleep, and I'm like, is it me? Like, my nails aren't really long or anything. I keep them trimmed, or maybe it's a demon or something. I don't know. But you're not here to hear about my sleep problems. You are here to hear about the latest video game news. And we got a couple stories that I definitely want to cover in today's video. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, and share the video. Stick around to the end of the video because I actually have an update on the Logan Paul thing, because it just gets bizarre because my life is bizarre. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. And we're going to start things off with some potential release dates for two big 2022 titles. Now, the first game we're going to talk about is Sonic Frontiers. I'm actually really looking forward to this game. I don't care that it's another new Sonic game, and typically speaking, they're not always of the greatest quality, but I feel like this is kind of make or break for Sonic. And I feel like, we got a Breath of the Wild moment. It's obvious when you stand out on a big grassy field and look over the landscape. It's kind of Breath of the Wildy. So I am looking forward to this game. I don't think it's going to be fully open world. I think it's going to be more along the lines of what we saw in Bowser's Fury, which I think worked really well. And maybe Sonic saw that, or Sega saw that, and was like, hey, we could do a game in this sort of style where, yes, it's open-ended, but like there's little segments that are sort of closed off in which you actually do the missions. Well, it looks like a potential release date leak for Sonic Frontiers has been discovered. Now, this is a back-end listing in the PlayStation database that a website called PlayStation Game Size found, and basically it has two interesting release dates. Now, of course, Sonic Frontiers is a multi-platform game. It'll be coming to the Switch, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, all of that good stuff. But it looks like, according to this back-end listing, the release date for Sonic Frontiers will be November 15th of 2022. Now, a lot of people think maybe that's a placeholder date, but when it comes to placeholder dates, you usually don't have a specific date. They just do sort of, the end of the year. It'll be like December 31st of 2022 or something of that nature. Whereas this is a actual specific release date. Now, of course, this date can change between now and the end of the 2022. Like, who knows what's going to happen next year. I really feel like we're going to see aliens next year. I think it's time for the little aliens to invade the US, and like, maybe they're not harmful or anything, but maybe eventually they'll be harmful. I don't know. I just think it's time for something really crazy to happen. Or maybe like Sasquatches are discovered and they come from the time traveling portals and the underground where they live from inside of the center of the earth. Man, I get down on some conspiracy theories. I don't necessarily believe them, but I like to study them. But yes, bringing everything back full circle. Could Sonic Frontiers be a November 15th, 2022 release date? I think that's probably the goal right now. They did initially say holiday of 2022. That definitely lines up within the holiday season, and this is a game I'm really looking forward to. Now, within that same discovery in the PlayStation backend done by PlayStation Game Size, another game was found, and this is actually a PlayStation 5 exclusive game that's, well, actually for the PlayStation 4 as well, but you believe in console generations, Jim Ryan. You believe in console generations. But the game in question is God of War Ragnarok. Now, this obviously is a sequel to the God of War reboot. It looks very similar to it, much more refined. It looks like you're going to be able to do more stuff. A cinematic, story-driven experience with really good gameplay, thankfully, because I don't know why everything has to have such a deep story and a deep narrative nowadays. Like, some games, it's just fun to sort of be off the wall and have big combos and stuff like that. But God of War obviously was a super impactful game on the PlayStation 4, talking about the reboot, and it looks like that has a release date in this back end as well of September 30th of 2022. Now, I think that's a good release date for this game. Obviously, Horizon is going to sort of be the first big game for the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 next year. Obviously, this game was supposed to be a 2021 game, which, I mean, once again, Jim Ryan just lied. This game was never going to be a 2021 game. If it was, they probably would release it a bit sooner than September 30th of 2022. But I do think that this is a date that, once again, Sony is probably gunning for with this. I think this is the release date that they want to have for this game, and it just sort of falls in line when you look at the schedule of things for the PlayStation 5 in 2022. Of course, Gran Turismo 7 is going to be releasing next year as well. That is a spring game right alongside of Horizon. So, an interesting year for the PlayStation 5. I'll be 100% honest with you guys. Since I moved back in October, my PlayStation 5 has been sitting in a tote, ready to be set up and ready to be played. I just haven't had anything to play on it because third-party games, I usually go on my Xbox Series X, and of course Halo Infinite dropped, so I've been spending my time with that, and of course my Nintendo Switch. There hasn't been any reason for me to set up my PlayStation 5, but with games like Horizon, Gran Turismo 7, and of course God of War Ragnarok all scheduled for 2022, I'm definitely going to be setting up that system. So like I said, it looks like these are the penciled in release dates for these games. Of course everything can change, but if this is the case, you know, we're already off to a good start with 2022. I think there's going to be so many awesome games coming out in the year. I think it's going to be, you know, a real resurgence for the video game industry, because the last 2 years, I mean, they've been decent, but they've obviously been sort of throttled with an issue of worldwide pandemics and shit like that. Whereas 2022, things are starting to get a little bit better as far as the development of things is concerned. So I'm really looking forward to these games. What about you though? Are you picking up Sonic Frontiers or God of War Ragnarok? Let me know in the comments down below. And finally, we got an interesting update on the Nintendo Switch heading into 2022. Now, let's be real. Once again, much like the PlayStation 5, I think the Nintendo Switch is absolutely stacked with games. When you look at what's just already been announced that's allegedly releasing in 2022, Splatoon 3, the new Kirby game, Pokemon Arceus, Bayonetta 3, what else is there going to be? I mean, even if those are just like the big games of the year, like that is pretty damn stacked. But Nintendo is starting to run into a major issue with the Nintendo Switch that has been plaguing the industry, much like the other things we talked about, like release dates of games, but now it's finally starting to hit Nintendo, and that is of course supply issues. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, it's not necessarily easy to get an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 or any of the variants of those systems because of the fact that there's been worldwide chip shortages, you know, and that's been something that's been affecting every sort of piece of technology, cars and all that stuff, which I think it's stupid. I think cars need to go back to just being simplistic and not have all this stupid nonsense attached to it, because eventually those computers and stuff are going to fail on the cars. Whereas like you could go buy a 67 car, you know, a 67 Mustang or something like that, and, you know, put gas in it and it will probably still run. But we're trying to make everything so technology based that if the smallest thing happens, like everything just goes haywire. But I digress. Once again, bringing everything back full circle. The chip shortage has been affecting all sorts of technology, and now it looks like it will be affecting the Nintendo Switch. In an interview with a Kyoto-based newspaper called Kyoto, I believe that's what it's called, Kyoto.jp, on their website, President Furukawa actually said some interesting things about the Nintendo Switch going into 2022. He said that basically, as far as 2022 is concerned, it will depend on the demand, but as I feared, we won't be able to make the amount of units that we wanted to. And when you look at the Nintendo Switch, you obviously have 3 different SKUs going on right now. You have your base Nintendo Switch model, you have your Nintendo Switch OLED model, and you have your Nintendo Switch Lite model. Now, all 3 of these systems, of course, use the same parts essentially. The only real main difference is the different screen on the Nintendo Switch OLED and the fact that you cannot dock your Nintendo Switch Lite. But beyond that, they're essentially the same system in every sort of facet when it comes to actually playing games. Now, as far as 2021 sales were concerned, President Furukawa did say that the end of the sales for 2021 were good. The Switch OLED had a strong performance, but they even started to see issues with Black Friday. Basically, Nintendo had to use air transportation to help with the demand, and in Europe, the company used rail transportation for the first time, you know, using these trains in order to get systems into the areas where they need to be in order to get these system sales going and people happy and buying these systems. So it looks like the playing field might actually even out a little bit in 2022 as far as the accessibility and the availability, because right now it's pretty easy to get your hands on a Nintendo Switch, not so much the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, but obviously as things sort of get better within the world, now the world is sort of catching up to these supply issues, and that's going to be something that is sort of like a backlog and a bit of a jam for Nintendo. You also have to factor in that Nintendo is probably working on a different variant of the Nintendo Switch as well. Will this impact it? Many people, myself included, honestly feel like the Switch Pro was supposed to be what the Switch OLED was, with beefier power, the DLSS technology, things that we've talked about a million times on this channel, because there's actual patents basing this sort of information on what Nintendo was actually doing. But of course, the timing of everything just didn't work out, so they did the OLED model instead. So it's going to be a very interesting 2022 in terms of hardware, because the Nintendo Switch has been on a roll. It's sold already over 100 million systems. It looks like it's just a, you know, a steam train, freight train ahead, just bashing through everything, but is it going to be more difficult to get the Switch in 2022, and how will that impact the system sales? As Nas said, woke up this morning and got yourself a Switch. Got yourself a Switch. So if you want a Switch, you might want to go ahead and buy it now, because 2022 might be a lot more difficult. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Before we go, though, like I said, I'm giving you guys an update on the Logan Paul story, because as I expected, a lot of people got upset with me about that. I don't care. I don't care. You know, it was just a fun video that I wanted to make of people's overreactions. But here's the thing. Logan Paul actually DM'd me. I've never talked to this man before in my life. I checked my Twitter DMs, the requested side of things, because actually a wrestler DM'd a friend of mine, that DM'd Wood, and I wanted to see if that wrestler DM'd me as well. But no, instead I got Logan Paul, and he actually thanked me for the video. He said that he will be talking about it in depth in his upcoming podcast, talking about how he made it, and, you know, all the sort of stuff that went into it, what sort of Game Boys were used. And I thought that was really cool of him. You know, he's obviously a controversial figure, but like, for him to reach out to me, just some random dude on the internet, for making a video and having a little bit of fun at people's expenses, I thought was a really cool thing. I mean, we're probably not going to go get beers or anything like that, but yeah, just a weird thing between like Jeff Keighley and Logan Paul. It's like, who's going to talk to me in 2022? Like, whose feathers am I going to rustle, or whose attention am I going to get? But yeah, I thought that was a fun little update. If you haven't checked out that video, make sure you guys go check that out. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and share the video. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.